So our first speaker is Rashida, Coach Rashida Mckenzie. Rashida will be our opening speaker, and the title of her talk today is Give Yourself Grace, Girl, Release Perfectionism and Reclaim Power. I don't know about you, but I certainly need this. So I'm absolutely ready. So I'll tell you a little bit about Rashida before I let her come up on stage or before I let her start. So Rashida Mckenzie is an author and a business and life strategist who trains highly ambitious women how to achieve personal and professional success without sacrificing their sanity. That's definitely something that I need. Having worked with women on every level of leadership for the last 15 years, from the White House to owning DC area's first concierge service for executive and entrepreneurial moms, Rashida brings a unique blend of experience and professional insight on what gets in the way of women who deeply desire to go for it. Over to you, Rashida.
Hello. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. I have a question for you all. Let's get the presentation up and ready. But in the meantime, I want to know how many of you have heard of, played, or know of the game hide and seek. Drop a 1 in the chat. Drop a 1 in the chat if you're familiar with the game hide and seek. Yes, okay. So some of you, yes, okay. So everybody is pretty much familiar. If yes, Latrice said 1, she's familiar. If we can get the slides up as well so that I can have access to them, that would be great. Thank you so much. Yes. So if you are familiar with the game hide and seek, I have to be sure because you have to understand that there are rules to this game. And my daughter is super into this game right now because she is amazing at it. When I say she is a beast at hide and seek, she is a beast. And part of it is because she is so tall and slender that she finds all of the best hiding places in the house. And so when she wants to play with me, I'm not the best at it because some of the places that she even thinks to go and to hide, I don't even consider because I wouldn't even fit. But I do notice that when she comes and she is playing with the young ladies that come over from her, that the young ladies that come over from her friend group, she tends to bait them into playing hide and seek. And so I watch her and I try to figure out why this often ends in frustration. Latrice says, yes, my kids are the same. So I started to study this game and I said, why does it keep ending in frustration, right? What is going on that there isn't a fight, but it's always something happening? And so one day I said, let me observe what's going on. And so I tiptoed down into the basement and I see her friend sitting there with her legs crossed and her arms behind her head. And I said, I thought you guys were in the middle of a game of hide and seek. And she says, yes, Miss Rashida, we are. But Maya is so hard to find. But you know what? Eventually she'll get tired and she'll come out. And it hit me almost immediately that hide and seek isn't one of those games that you're actually supposed to be good at. You don't want to be a beast at hide and seek because what happens is what is looking for you can't find you. The things that you say you want that are looking for you, whether that is more personal or business success, maybe it's more love in your life, those things that you are looking for can't find you. So my question is, how many of you are still hiding behind your schedule, saying that if and when my kids are older, then I'll pursue the goals that I have in my life, then I'll apply for that promotion? or hiding behind your kids. And this is something that we rarely talk about in terms of overscheduling them to the point where you don't even have time as a leader to take care of yourself. Or maybe you're hiding behind what you consider a lack of knowledge or not being ready enough. Or here's one of my favorites that I constantly hear and love to address. Or perhaps you're hiding behind what we call imposter syndrome, because we're going to get to that in a minute, simply because I believe there really is no such thing. So how are you still hiding? If that is you, if I've already come down your street, tapped on your shoulder, and you know that I'm talking to you, I'm here to remind you today that it's time to come out wherever you are. You have enough experience. Come out wherever you are. If you're tired of seeing other people implement that idea that you know that you had 10 years ago, it is time for you to come out wherever you are. Your past failures, anything that you've gone through, anything that you've been through, you need it all. It does not disqualify you. It is time for you to come out wherever you are. So here's my promise to you. Today, I'm going to simply teach you 2 simple shifts that you're going to have to make in order to stop hiding and step into your shine. Because these concepts come from the book that I wrote. It's called Give Yourself Grace, Girl. And what helps me really get into this mindset and identify right how we hide is the fact that we are so hard on ourselves. We are so hard on ourselves, the way that we show up, the way that we speak to ourselves, the way that we discount who we are and don't show up in the fullness of ourselves. We have to ask ourselves why we continue to allow ourselves to show up, to hide. So today I want to talk to you about what it actually looks like. Like, it's one thing to say, give yourself grace. It's another thing for me to break down what that actually looks like. And so what that looks like is for you to stop hiding. So let's talk about those 2 simple shifts, because what happens is we want to show up, but the caveat is that you cannot hide and shine. Here's the thing. I believe right now that there is a renaissance happening. And I'm not just talking about Beyonce's latest album or you going out to get her concert tickets. I'm talking about the feeling that you have that what used to work for you is no longer serving you. Maybe you've entered into marriage or motherhood or taken a new job or put on more responsibilities. And you know that the way that you used to do things is not the way that you want to continue to do things. You've got the skills and the knowledge and professional credentials, but you also know that you have a calling on your life and you want to walk in your purpose. I'm talking about the feeling that you have a desire to increase your bottom line, but you also know that at the end of the day, what you really want is to live a better life, and you don't want it to come at the expense of burning out or feeling bad. Because here's the thing, we don't just decide to hide. It's all of these things that we're already feeling that has us questioning whether we want to stay where we are or whether we want to come out. And so it is up to you to make that decision. So if you feel that renaissance, if you know what I'm talking about, just put I feel it in the comments. Put I feel it in the comments. Let's see who we have. Latrice said, yes, come out wherever you are. You have the experience. Yes, if you're feeling that renaissance, if you're feeling that feeling that's causing you to say, hey, I know that there's something more for me. I know that there's more for me to do. I want you to put, I feel that in the comments, because I don't believe in coincidences. The fact that you're here means that you are ready to be on the forefront of a movement of women who are ready to expand their reach, but on their own terms and have a bigger impact. And here's the thing, we don't just decide to show up. We just don't decide to show up. We don't decide that we're going to hide. We learn how to hide. Here's something that I already know about you and we haven't even met yet. You already know that you're brilliant. You already know that you've been called to something more and something greater. But maybe there are some things in your life, maybe you've been taught not to speak unless spoken to. Maybe you've had an idea or something that you put out into the world, and then somebody said, oh, I don't know if that's a good idea. So what happens is you started second guessing yourself. But you already know deep down that you have what it takes. Which brings me to the first shift that you're going to have to make. Stop thinking that you're an imposter. Stop saying that you're an imposter. Stop accepting that that is something that even exists. Because you already know that you're set apart. But what happens is that we accept this definition when what I believe is actually happening is something that I call suppression syndrome. And suppression syndrome is when you know you're brilliant, but you start to conceal what you're capable of out of fear of being criticized. What are they going to say? How are they going to respond if I? And so what happens is all of those things over the years, we've learned to simply press down, put aside. And so we show up and we dampen, deny our quirks, those things that make us unique, the things that make us different. We press those down over our lifetime. But what happens is when we finally get that spark and when we decide that, okay, I'm going to go for it, then all of those things start to come up, because we can't suppress who we are and what we want and not expect them to rise to the top. So what you often feel as a struggle, or why it feels like we're showing up as an imposter, is because you've been hiding those things for so long that you're not even sure what to do with them when you're in a safe space like this one, or in a safe environment. But I liken it to being trained in CPR. If you were trained in CPR and you saw that somebody needed your help, right? They needed life breathe back into them. Would you stand by and wait for somebody else more qualified? Would you wait for the paramedics to show up on the scene? Or would you immediately administer what you knew how to do? You would take action, because you know that inaction or continuing to hold on to what you know would lead to demise. And so many of us do that to our dreams. We're capable, but we stand on the sideline, sitting there waiting for somebody else more qualified. But think of it as administering CPR to your life and to your dreams. You know exactly what you want, but sometimes we've settled for the safety and dissatisfaction for so long that we simply forget. It's not something that's going to change overnight, because we've been taught. It's something that's been learned over time. And so that's why it's important to give yourself grace. Which brings me to shift number 2. If you are going to show up and shine, you're going to have to release that representative. Because more often than not, you have been trained to tell only the good parts of what's going on with you. We're taught only to tell the things that make it look easy, that make it look magical. But we know that the process to get to where you want to go, the process to achieve success, it can sometimes be messy. And so what happens is you strive to always put your best foot forward. So you don't show up unless you're done up. You won't post a picture if your hair is out of place because you say that you want it to be just right. How many of you guys know exactly what I'm talking about? So what happens is when you show up in your leadership, it's really your representative that's showing up. Or you leave who you are altogether out of the equation. Where we have a willingness to change our hair, to change the way we dress, to change all of these things. When the person that you're called to help on the other side of that needs to see who you are. They need to see you show up in your authenticity so that they know they have permission to release perfection and reclaim their own power. And I know that you've been trained. I know that you've been trained not to tell your business, not to air your dirty laundry. And so what comes up for us is that we fear being rejected or judged or worried that people won't take us seriously. And so you start to play it safe. And then you sound and you look and you dress like everybody else. But let me ask you this question. What if your next 6 figures? What if your next version of success was in that story that you aren't willing to tell? What if it's in that struggle that you haven't quite yet been willing to share? Because when you don't recognize what's holding you back, you know what happens? We retreat to safety. We retreat to what feels good and comfortable. Now, I don't know about you, but I believe that Jasmine Sullivan, if you're familiar, just drop a J in the chat. Jasmine Sullivan is one of the greatest vocalists of our times, hand down. Argue with me, okay? She's one of the greatest vocalists of our time. But did you know that she took almost a 6-7 year hiatus? Because behind the scenes, she was going through an abusive relationship. And so what happened is that caused her to stop singing. She didn't put out an album. And then one day I was watching an interview and I was listening intently into what would make somebody with that much skill and that much talent retreat. And she shared that not only had she been in that abusive relationship, but that on top of that, her mom had been battling cancer. And then, of course, as you all know, we experienced COVID. But she found a silver lining when the record executive that she was working with said, hey, why don't you stop a second and put everything that you've been going through into your music. Let's get ahead of these hard times. And so what happened is the result of her getting it out, of sharing the things of what that she was struggling with, she created a body of work that allowed her to be vulnerable and express her passion. And so she started to question and ask other women about their experiences of being disrespected or betrayed in their own relationships. And it created this community, it created dialogue.
I'm going to have to jump in here, Rashida. We have sadly run out of time, but I know all of the things you're saying are so incredibly important. Um, Perhaps we can maybe we're going to have to wrap up here.
Sure.
Just yeah, just
Sure.
so that
So sure. Let me bring it home really quick. So thank you so much for letting me know it's time. So when you don't recognize what's holding you back, then you retreat. But what I want you to know is that the world needs what you have to offer. So it's time to stop hiding and start seeking, going after what it is that you want. Thank you so much. I'm Rashida Mckenzie.
thank you so much, Rashida. And I don't know about you, but I think for me, the biggest takeaway that I'm taking from everything that Rashida said was come out wherever you are. And that was probably one of the most incredible things. And that's definitely going to carry